People of God, listen. A mystery has come to light, something hidden from the eyes of men, but known from the beginning of time, is now being unveiled. It has been confirmed. You were set up. From the very start, forces have been at work, ancient powers that move beneath the surface of nations, institutions, and hearts. These are not accidents. These are not coincidences. The signs were written long ago. There is a pattern, a mystery that links the fall of empires, the rise of deception, and the turning of hearts away from truth. The prophets warned of it. They spoke of days when evil would disguise itself as good, when the foundations would be shaken, and when darkness would call itself light. And now the whistleblower has spoken, not from the halls of government, not from the media, but from a higher place. A voice that pierces the noise of the world and says, "The truth has been hidden, but now it is revealed." You were set up, not merely by politics or systems, but by a spiritual agenda, an ancient war between truth and deception. The adversary has always sought to rewrite the story, to make you forget who you are and whose you are. He set up kingdoms to fall. He set up hearts to grow cold. He set up nations to turn from their foundations. But God has His own plan, His own divine counter setup. For every deception, there is revelation. For every hidden scheme, there is an exposure. For every falsehood, there is a trumpet that sounds from heaven saying, "Come out from among them and be separate." You see, the world calls it coincidence. Heaven calls it confirmation. Everything is being exposed because the hour is late. The line between truth and lie, light and darkness, is being drawn. And you, child of God, were not set up to fall. You were set up to stand. So rise, shake off the deception. The whistleblower has spoken. The truth has been unveiled. And the revelation is this: though the enemy meant it for evil, the Almighty is turning it for good. You were set up, yes, but set up by heaven to be a witness in the final hour. Stand firm. The shaking will come, but those who stand upon the rock will not be moved. For what was hidden is now revealed. What was planned in darkness is now shouted from the rooftops. And in the end, the truth will prevail, because the author of truth still reigns. You were set up for a purpose. Those words may sound harsh at first, even unfair, but in the eyes of eternity, they carry divine meaning. What feels like betrayal, confusion, or injustice in your life may not be the enemy's victory. It may be heaven's orchestration. Every setback, every disappointment, every door that closed when you thought it should open was not meant to destroy you, but to position you. There are no accidents in the kingdom of God. What seems like chaos to man is often divine order in disguise. When you were rejected, you were not being cast aside, you were being redirected. When you lost what you thought you needed, heaven was removing what would have hindered your destiny. The setup was never random, it was purposeful. The forces that tried to tear you down only ended up building the very foundation God will use to lift you up. Every test you faced was training for the calling ahead. You were not set up to fail. You were set up to reveal what was hidden inside you all along. There's a mystery in the ways of God. He often allows the plans of darkness to unfold, not because He approves of them, but because He uses them. The same cross that was meant to end the story of redemption became the very tool of salvation. What was meant to silence heaven's voice became the instrument through which it shouted to the ends of the earth. So, too, in your life, the trials that seem designed to break you are the very things that prepare you for your greatest assignment. You may have been set up by enemies who plotted against you. You may have been misunderstood by people who were supposed to stand with you. You may have been placed in situations where everything seemed lost. But behind the curtain of those painful moments, the unseen hand of God was weaving a purpose far greater than the pain. What others meant for evil, he meant for good. The betrayal became the bridge. The loss became the lesson. The wound became the weapon of your testimony. When you stand on the other side of what tried to destroy you, you begin to see that nothing was wasted. The sleepless nights, the silent tears, the moments of isolation, all of them were ingredients in the making of your strength. You were being shaped, refined, and purified for a higher calling. God does not waste suffering, he transforms it. The setup you went through was not a trap. It was a test to reveal your true identity. Sometimes God allows the enemy to set his trap, not so you'll fall into it, but so you'll rise above it and expose it. He allows you to walk through the fire, not to burn you, but to burn away everything that does not belong in your destiny. He allows the storm not to sink you, but to show you that you can walk on water when your eyes are fixed on him. The setup becomes the stage for his glory. So don't curse the setup. Don't resent the process. The things that felt like endings were actually beginnings in disguise. The detours were directions. The disappointments were divine appointments. Heaven knew the path before you took the first step, and every twist in the road was written with purpose. You were never a victim of circumstance. You were part of a divine strategy. In the end, the revelation is this: you were set up, but not by chance. You were set up by the God who knows the end from the beginning. He placed you in this moment, this season, this generation for a reason. You are not here by accident. You are here because heaven ordained it. And when you look back, you will see that every setup was part of the sacred plan to prepare you, position you, and prove that your purpose was greater than the pain. There are forces at work in this world that most people never see. Beneath the surface of politics, culture, and daily life, there is a spiritual current moving through the ages. These are not new powers. They are ancient. They existed long before our modern systems, long before nations were born, long before the names of today's leaders were ever spoken. They are the same spiritual influences that have moved through the rise and fall of empires, the same deceptive voices that whispered to kings, priests, and rulers throughout history. They are the powers of pride, rebellion, corruption, and deception, disguised in new forms, wearing modern masks, yet ancient in origin. These forces do not sleep. They adapt to each generation, finding new ways to enter the minds and hearts of men. In one age, they appear as idols made of stone. In another, they take shape in ideologies, movements, or cultural trends. Their goal remains unchanged: to turn hearts away from truth, to blind eyes from the light, to make humanity forget the one who created them. What begins as curiosity becomes compromise. What begins as progress becomes pride. And pride always leads to downfall. If you look back through history, you can trace the same patterns repeating themselves. When Israel turned from the living God to follow the gods of the nations, it was not just an act of politics or culture. It was a spiritual seduction. The same spirits that once demanded worship in the temples of Baal now demand loyalty in the temples of self. The altars have changed, but the spirit behind them has not. Ancient powers still seek to claim the hearts of people, not by force, but by deception. They do not always announce themselves. They work subtly through influence, emotion, and desire. These powers shape the world's values, redefine morality, and distort truth until wrong looks right and right looks wrong. They move through entertainment, education, media, and government. They whisper lies that sound like freedom and promise enlightenment that leads only to confusion. They convince humanity that there is no higher truth, that every person is their own God. and that the ancient ways of righteousness are outdated. Yet behind this veil of enlightenment lies the same darkness that has existed since the beginning. The rise of these powers is not a sign of chaos. It is a sign of fulfillment. The same scriptures that spoke of nations rising and falling also spoke of a time when these ancient forces would return, clothed in modern garments, deceiving even the wise. We are witnessing that return. The struggles of today are not just cultural, they are spiritual. The war for truth is not fought with weapons, but with words, ideas, and hearts. And those who see only the surface will miss the real battle taking place behind it. But even as these powers move, their end has already been written. They may rise for a season, but they cannot stand against the truth forever. Every empire that served them has fallen. Every system that exalted itself above God has crumbled. Babylon rose and fell. Rome rose and fell. And every force that opposes truth will fall in its appointed time. The question is not whether these powers exist. They always have. The question is whether we will recognize them. Those who discern the times will not be deceived. They will see through the disguises, through the empty promises, through the glitter of false light. They will remember that there is only one true power that stands above all others. The power that spoke creation into being, the power that conquered death, the power that still calls humanity back to truth. These ancient forces may influence the world, but they cannot control those who walk in light. For every deception, there is revelation. For every shadow, there is truth shining through. And in the end, the powers that think themselves eternal will vanish like smoke before the dawn. The same hand that has guided the course of history still holds it now. And though ancient powers rise again, the eternal power remains unshaken. The truth is being exposed. For years, for generations, it has been hidden behind walls of deception, buried under layers of confusion and distraction. But the time for concealment is ending. What was whispered in secret is now being shouted from the rooftops. What was done in darkness is being brought into the light. The world is standing at a moment of unveiling, a revelation long prepared for this hour. The truth that many feared, ignored, or denied is rising to the surface, and no power of man can stop it. The exposure is not coming through the hands of politicians or the mouths of media figures. It is coming from a higher place, a divine source that moves beyond human influence. There is a voice, steady, unwavering, and eternal, calling out to all who will listen. Wake up, for the veil is being lifted. This is not merely about uncovering corruption in governments or institutions. It is about the unveiling of hearts, motives, and spiritual realities. Every falsehood that has shaped the course of nations and every lie that has blinded the eyes of men is being confronted by truth itself. Truth has a way of breaking through, no matter how deeply it is buried. Like light piercing through the cracks of a closed door, it cannot be silenced. For a time, deception may appear powerful. It can build empires, control minds, and even rewrite history. But deception always carries within itself the seed of its own destruction, because falsehood cannot stand forever. Sooner or later, truth exposes the lie for what it is. And in that moment, the masks fall, the illusions shatter, and what is real comes into view. The exposure that is happening in our time is not by accident. It is a divine shaking meant to awaken the sleeping and humble the proud. Many will be shocked by what is revealed because they have trusted in systems built on shadows. But those who have sought truth, who have listened for the still small voice in the noise of the world, will recognize this unveiling as confirmation. It is a reminder that the author of truth has not been silent. He has simply been waiting for the appointed time. Every generation faces a moment when truth collides with deception. That moment has now come for ours. The lies that once seemed unshakable are beginning to tremble. The structures built on falsehood are starting to crack. There are truths being revealed not only about the world, but about the hearts of men. The motives behind movements, the corruption beneath power, the spiritual emptiness behind glittering promises, all are being uncovered. This exposure is uncomfortable, but it is necessary. It is the cleansing before renewal, the shaking before restoration. When truth is exposed, it demands a response. Some will resist it, clinging to their illusions because the truth requires change. Others will embrace it, even though it challenges everything they thought they knew. But make no mistake, once truth is revealed, it cannot be unseen. The light may hurt at first, but it brings freedom. It burns away deception and opens the eyes of those who desire to see. This unveiling is not a punishment, it is an act of mercy. It is the call of heaven saying, "Come out of the darkness, come into the light." The same truth that exposes also heals. The same revelation that uncovers sin also offers redemption. The exposure is not to destroy, but to deliver, to break the power of the lie so that truth can reign again. And so, in this hour, as secrets are revealed and veils are torn away, do not be afraid. Truth is not your enemy, it is your liberation. What is being uncovered now is preparing the world for what comes next. A time when nothing hidden will remain concealed. Stand firm, keep your eyes open, and let the light of truth expose what must be seen. For in the end, only truth will remain standing. There is a war taking place, a war that cannot be seen with the eyes, but can be felt deep within the spirit. It is a battle older than time itself, a conflict between truth and deception, light and darkness, good and evil. This war does not begin on battlefields or in nations. It begins in the hearts and minds of people. Every lie ever spoken, every truth ever silenced, every temptation, every whisper of doubt, they are all part of this ancient struggle. The enemy of truth has always sought to twist reality, to make what is false appear noble, and to make what is holy seem foolish. And in our time, this war has intensified like never before. The enemy's greatest weapon has never been power or violence. It has been deception. From the very beginning, he did not conquer humanity with force, but with a question: did God really say? That question planted doubt, and from doubt came rebellion. The same strategy is being used today. Instead of swords and spears, the weapons are words, narratives, and ideologies. The battlefield is not just the land we stand on. It is the mind, the heart, and the soul. Deception wears many disguises. It can come cloaked in compassion, reason, or progress. It can sound enlightened, logical, even righteous. But at its core, it always seeks to separate humanity from truth, from the voice of the one who is truth. The goal is not only to confuse, but to reprogram, to replace what is eternal with what is temporary, to exchange wisdom for noise, and to silence conviction in the name of tolerance. And the world, caught in the middle, has grown wary of trying to discern what is real. The line between truth and falsehood is no longer clear to many. What was once considered good is now condemned. What was once called evil is now celebrated. The spirit of deception has convinced nations to rewrite their foundations, convinced generations to doubt their identity, and convinced many to believe that truth is subjective. But truth has never changed. It does not bend to culture, politics, or opinion. Truth stands unmoved through the storms of history. And though deception may shout louder, truth still whispers to those who will listen. This spiritual war is not fought with human weapons. You cannot defeat deception with anger or pride. The only weapon that can destroy a lie is truth itself. That is why the deceiver fears the truth, because it exposes him. The moment light enters the darkness, The shadows flee. The moment truth is spoken, lies begin to crumble. That is why the world is filled with so much noise, so many distractions, because silence and stillness make it easier to hear the quiet voice of truth calling out. Every person is a participant in this war, whether they realize it or not. To stand for truth is to stand against deception. It requires courage, because truth often costs something. It can make you unpopular. It can isolate you. But truth has never depended on the approval of the crowd. It depends only on the light that birthed it. Those who walk in truth will face resistance, just as light always draws the attention of darkness. Yet the victory has already been written. Deception may win battles, but truth wins the war. In the end, the purpose of this conflict is not destruction, but revelation. The contrast between darkness and light grows sharper, so that the difference becomes undeniable. The shaking of nations and the confusion of societies are not random. They are signs of exposure. The masks are being removed. The lies are being uncovered. And as the war intensifies, those who stand in truth will shine brighter. So hold fast to what is true. Guard your heart against the whispers of compromise. In a world drowning in deception, be a voice that speaks light. The war between truth and deception is reaching its peak, but do not fear. Truth will prevail, as it always has. Darkness cannot overcome the light, and no lie can outlast eternity. Even when darkness appears to win, God always has a counter plan. Every scheme of the enemy, every deception, every setback, every betrayal, he already saw it long before it unfolded. Nothing surprises him. What looks like chaos to us is strategy in his hands. What the enemy sets up for destruction, God transforms into a stage for his glory. There has never been a plot from hell that heaven has not already prepared a response for. The enemy moves in secrecy, but God moves in sovereignty. He allows what he could prevent, because he intends to redeem what he allows. Throughout history, every time darkness rose to power, it only served to advance the purpose of God. When Pharaoh hardened his heart and enslaved a nation, it seemed that evil had prevailed. But God turned Pharaoh's oppression into the platform for the Exodus, a miracle that would be remembered for generations. When Haman plotted to destroy the people of God, it appeared as though the end had come. Yet in that very moment, God positioned Esther in the palace to turn the decree of death into a declaration of deliverance. Over and over, heaven has shown that it does not react to the enemy, it overrules him. God's counterplan often begins in silence. While the world panics and the enemy celebrates, heaven works quietly behind the scenes. When Joseph was thrown into a pit, sold as a slave, and forgotten in prison, it seemed as though every dream God had given him was dead. But all along, God was orchestrating a plan. The pit was the path. The prison was the preparation. The delay was the design. In time, Joseph realized that every step was part of a divine counter move. He told his brothers, "You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good." That is the pattern of the Almighty, turning plots into promises and wounds into weapons of testimony. Even now, as deception spreads across nations and confusion floods the hearts of people, God has not lost control. He is not reacting to events. He is directing them. The systems of the world may crumble, but his kingdom remains unshaken. When lies dominate the airwaves, he raises up voices of truth. When hope seems lost, he breathes life again. The enemy sets traps of fear, but God uses those very traps to strengthen faith. What the adversary intends to use to silence, God uses to awaken. Every move of the enemy becomes the raw material for a greater miracle. We must learn to trust the unseen hand of God, even when the plan makes no sense. His counter strategies are not always immediate, but they are always perfect. Sometimes he allows darkness to rise so that the light may be revealed in greater glory. Sometimes he allows storms to rage so that faith can grow stronger. When everything seems against you, it is often a sign that something divine is being birthed. The pressure you feel is not punishment. It is preparation for promise. The same God who turned the cross into an empty tomb is still writing counter stories today. The crucifixion looked like the ultimate victory for evil, but it was heaven's greatest victory in disguise. The enemy celebrated too soon. What he thought would end redemption became the very act that unleashed it. That is how God works. He takes the worst the world can offer and transforms it into the greatest display of his power. So when you see corruption rising, when lies seem louder than truth, remember this: God is not finished. Every scheme is temporary. Every plan of darkness has an expiration date. The Almighty always has the final word. What seems like defeat is often the doorway to destiny. The same voice that spoke light into existence still speaks over chaos today. His counterplan is in motion. The enemy may set the trap, but God sets the table. And in the end, what was meant for your ruin will become the very thing that reveals his glory through you. Now is the time to stand firm. The shaking has begun, and everything that is not grounded in truth will tremble. The world is shifting, foundations are cracking, and the lines between light and darkness are being drawn more clearly than ever before. In times like these, neutrality is no longer an option. To stand for nothing is to fall for everything. The call is going out to those who can still hear it, to rise, to take their stand, and to be unmovable in the midst of the storm. Standing firm does not mean standing still in fear or confusion. It means anchoring your soul to something unshakable. The winds of change are fierce, and deception blows from every direction. But truth remains the only steady ground. Those who stand upon it will not be moved, no matter how violent the storm becomes. This is not a time to compromise, to blend in, or to silence truth for the sake of comfort. It is a time for courage. The courage to speak when silence is safer, the courage to act when hesitation is easier, and the courage to believe when doubt surrounds you. To stand firm is to remember who you are and whose you are. The world will try to redefine you, to make you doubt your worth, to convince you that your faith is outdated or irrelevant. But you were never meant to conform to the world. You were meant to transform it. You carry light in a generation that calls darkness enlightenment. You carry truth in a culture that worships confusion. You are not here by mistake. You were chosen for this hour. Every challenge you face is a reminder that you have a purpose greater than your pain. Standing firm requires discernment. The noise of this age is deafening. Voices of division, fear, and manipulation surround us. The enemy's goal is to wear you down, to make you tired of standing, to make you think your stand doesn't matter. But every stand for truth echoes in eternity. Every moment you refuse to compromise strengthens the ground beneath your feet. Even when you feel alone, you are not. Heaven stands with those who stand for righteousness. The hosts of heaven are not impressed by crowds or numbers. They respond to faith, to conviction, and to the voice of those who will not bow. Standing firm also means standing in love. Truth without love becomes harsh, and love without truth becomes hollow. The greatest strength is not found in anger or pride, but in compassion that refuses to surrender truth. To stand firm is to reflect the nature of the one who stood before the world's hatred and never wavered. It is to forgive when you could retaliate, to bless when you are cursed, to keep shining when darkness surrounds you. The stand you take is not only against evil, but for good, for hope, for peace, for redemption. As the world grows darker, the light of those who stand will shine brighter. There will be pressure to conform, to go silent, to give up. There will be moments when it seems easier to walk away. But remember, every generation has been tested, and every generation has needed those who refuse to bow to the spirit of the age. This is that moment for you. You were not set here to hide, you were set here to stand. When the shaking is over, only what is true will remain. Empires will fall, systems will fail, and lies will collapse under their own weight. But those who stand on truth will still be standing. Their foundation is not built on shifting sand, but on the eternal rock that cannot be moved. So hold your ground. Stand with conviction, stand with love, and stand with faith. The storm will pass, the lies will fade, and the world will know that those who stood for truth stood not in their own strength, but in the strength of the one who never falls.